Okay, let's unpack this. The word literally.
Yeah.
It feels like such a basic word.
Yeah.
Right? Something we all use.
Yeah.
But it also seems to be, I don't know, surprisingly controversial. It really gets people going.
It's quite fascinating, isn't it, how a seemingly straightforward adverb can trigger such strong reactions.
Mm-hmm.
It really speaks to how closely we connect with language and how we see even small shifts in how words are used.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we're really plunging into the heart of this whole puzzle, all thanks to the great collection of articles and, discussions you, our listener, shared with us.
Yeah, that was great.
We've got everything from, old dictionary entries to really passionate online debates, all about this one word.
Yeah.
Literally.
And our aim here isn't really to, decide who's right or wrong about using literally.
No, not taking sides.
No. Instead, we want to explore why. Why this word, which, at its core means factual, has become such a lightning rod. We'll trace its history, look at how its use in everyday conversation has changed, and try to understand the different views on whether this change is, natural evolution or maybe a loss of precision.
Okay, so let's dive right in then. The core controversy. This kind of tension between let's call it the traditional meaning of literally when something actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And its more common use today is just like an intensifier.
Yeah.
Often in places where maybe figuratively would seem, more technically correct.
That contrast really hits on a key point about language change, doesn't it? You have this original, very specific meaning.
Yeah.
And then you see it being picked up just to add emphasis, sometimes in ways that are obviously not literal. It makes you ask how and why these shifts even happen.
And it's not just something that started recently, is it? I was really interested to see in some of the stuff you sent over that this non-literal literally has actually been around for quite a while.
Exactly. That's important.
Yeah.
It challenges the idea that this is, some new thing driven by texting or the internet or whatever.
Right, like it's ruining the language now.
Yeah, that narrative. But our sources show this colloquial use has been in dictionaries for over a century.
A century. Wow.
And there's evidence it was probably used for maybe 200 or 300 years even before that. One source mentioned examples from 1769.
1769. That's really surprising.
Yeah.
It makes you think about, in other words, how they've changed too.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the online discussions brought up really and very. Think about really. It used to mean, connected to reality.
Sure, its root is real.
But now, we mostly just use it for emphasis. I'm really tired.
That's a perfect parallel. Really, very. Over time, they've sort of become untethered from their original literal meanings.
Yeah.
They mainly function as intensifiers now, and literally seems to be on a similar track. This kind of semantic shift where meaning evolves, it's a standard process in linguistics. It happens.
Which brings us to this idea that literally has become what was the term?
A contronym.
A contronym.
Or autoantonym.
A word with two opposite meanings.
Precisely. Literally has pretty much become one. It joins words like sanction, which can mean approve or punish.
Oh, I see.
Or cleave, to split apart or to cling together. Dust, to remove dust or to sprinkle dust.
Okay, I see. But with those other ones, usually the context tells you which meaning is intended.
Yeah.
Right.
Usually, yes.
So is the argument that with literally, the context isn't always enough, that it can actually cause confusion?
That's a key part of the argument against it, yes. While context often helps with other contronyms, the worry with literally as an intensifier is that sometimes it can create genuine ambiguity.
Mm-hmm.
If someone says the queue was literally miles long, are they just exaggerating for effect?
Or trying to say it was actually unbelievably long.
Exactly. Where's the line?
Okay, so let's dig into the reasons why some people really object to using literally this way. What are the main arguments?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is that this dual use just erodes the original meaning. It dilutes it.
Dilutes it.
Meaning, if literally can also mean not literally, how do we effectively emphasize when something really happened in the actual sense of the word? There's a worry it loses its power for precision.
That makes sense. If literally can mean figuratively, then what word do we use when we want to stress that something actually happened? No exaggeration.
Right. That's the dilemma. Another point is about communication efficiency and potential ambiguity, especially in writing, without tone of voice.
Yeah, text can be tricky.
Some also feel it's just unnecessary emphasis, redundant. especially when it's tacked on to statements that are already hyperbolic, like, I literally exploded with joy.
Exploded is already pretty intense. You don't really need literally there.
It can feel like overkill, yeah.
Yeah.
And furthermore, some argue this specific evolution of literally isn't like other language changes that might add nuance. They see it more as stemming from misunderstanding or just overuse.
Yeah.
And finally, there's the basic point. When a word can mean its opposite, its usefulness for its original job is, well, significantly reduced, isn't it? How can you be sure what someone means?
Those are definitely strong points. Okay, let's flip it. What about the arguments for using literally as an intensifier? Why do people defend it?
Well, a central argument is simply that language changes, it's fluid, it evolves based on how people actually use it.
It's descriptive, not prescriptive.
Exactly. It's not about some fixed rule book, it's about how language functions in a community. There's also this concept called bridging contexts.
Bridging context.
Yeah, it's where a word can be understood in both its old and new senses in the same sort of situation. This can help legitimize the newer usage over time. It shows how meaning can stretch and adapt.
So in that example, I literally haven't slept in days. Maybe you could interpret it either way, like maybe they really haven't slept, or maybe it's just hyperbole for being exhausted.
Precisely. And the fact that both interpretations are possible in that context helps the figurative meaning gain ground. And from a linguistic standpoint, if a usage is common and understood within a group, it becomes a valid part of their language, regardless of dictionaries initially.
Right. Usage dictates validity.
Plus, there's an argument that using literally for something clearly not literal can actually boost the hyperbole. It draws attention to how absurd the statement is.
So using the word associated with fact makes the exaggeration even more striking. Like you're leaning into the impossibility.
Exactly. It's like using that anchor of the literal to emphasize just how unliteral you're being. Some linguists even suggest literally has become this unique kind of word, one that plays right on that edge between the literal and figurative, adds a certain flavor.
That's an interesting take. And dictionaries, they play a role here too, right? I mean, I know I've seen dictionaries list both definitions.
Yes, absolutely. Most modern dictionaries now include the informal emphatic definition right alongside the original one.
Okay.
But it's key to remember what dictionaries do. They are mainly descriptive. They aim to record language as it is used.
Not tell us how we should use it.
Correct. But that very act of recording this newer meaning has definitely been a source of complaint for some dictionary publishers and, language traditionalists.
I bet. It must feel like they're validating a change that some people actively dislike.
It really highlights that ongoing tension, that push and pull between describing language and prescribing it.
Yeah.
Now, what about cultural factors or just personal preferences? People react quite differently to hearing figurative literally, don't they?
Definitely seems like it. A lot of the annoyance seems tied to maybe a preference for more formal language or just a dislike of what feels like trendy slang that's maybe overused.
That's a big part of it. And as some of the material you shared pointed out, non-native English speakers can find this dual meaning really confusing.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, think about it. You learn this word means factually true, and then you hear people using it to mean the opposite. That's got to be tough for learners.
It adds a whole layer of, like, wait, what do they actually mean?
Absolutely. And just the sheer frequency sometimes. The perception that literally is just sprinkled into sentences as a filler intensifier, even by native speakers, that can grate on people.
Like it loses its impact.
It can feel that way, yeah, like it's diluting language. And going back to an earlier point, in certain contexts, precision really matters. Think about, say, describing medical symptoms.
Right.
If you say your head literally exploded, that means something very different to a doctor than just saying you have a bad headache. Ambiguity there could have real consequences.
That's a really crucial point. Clarity is vital sometimes.
Exactly. So, are there ways around this? Any potential solutions or ways to navigate this shift?
Well, some discussions mentioned using other words if you really want to stress literalness, like actually, or in fact, or genuinely.
Using alternatives for emphasis.
But is that likely to catch on as a widespread fix? Will people consciously switch?
It's really hard to say. Language change tends to be pretty organic, doesn't it? It's hard to steer consciously on a large scale. While some individuals might make that choice, the fact that figurative literally is so common suggests it's probably here to stay in our conversational language, at least for a while.
It's embedded now.
Seems like it. One online thread even jokingly wondered if definitely might be next,
Yeah.
start being used ironically.
I'm definitely going to finish that project today. Meaning the opposite. That would be
Yeah.
something.
It just goes to show how language keeps shifting under our feet,
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive on literally, it's really clear that this one little word gives us a fascinating window into how language works, how it evolves.
Mm-hmm.
What started as a very straightforward term for fact has, over centuries, picked up this extra intensifying, sometimes seemingly opposite meaning, and it's sparked a lot of debate.
And as we've talked about, there are valid points on both sides. Arguments rooted in clarity, in tradition, but also in just acknowledging the dynamic living nature of language and how we use it to connect.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Given this whole journey of literally, what other words are out there in our everyday speech that might be undergoing similar shifts right now, maybe more subtly?
That's interesting to think about.
And how does just being aware of these changes maybe influence how we communicate or how we understand others? Perhaps you'll now hear the word literally in a,
Dare I say it?
in a literally different way.